Hello, I'm Riley Adley, and I'm going to talk about the evolving nature of the Cold War. World War II saw the beginning of a rivalry between two allies, the Soviet Union and the United States, who had differing economical, political, and military views. The United States, threatened by the Soviets' idea to expand, went to great lengths to contain it. This mistrust led to a long rivalry between the two nations as they fought for supremacy in further advancing their technology. The nuclear arms race is an example of this. The tensions felt between the two opposing countries heightened as the changing nature of the Cold War evolved. In this documentary, the key phases of the Cold War will be identified and how significant issues such as expansion and containment, nuclear arms race, and the Berlin Wall shaped the nature of the war will be discussed. There are six key phases that the Cold War can be divided into. The first phase began before the end of World War II in 1943 until 1946. Tensions grew between the two nations, and it was apparent at the Yalta Conference when the leader of the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin, had quite opposing views to that of the United States President Franklin D. Roosevelt in regards to the status of Poland. The second phase began in 1947 and ends in 1953. 1947 marks the beginning of the Cold War, and this time period also saw the United States attempt to apply its policy of containment in order to prevent the spread of communism. This time period also marks the beginning of the nuclear arms race. The third phase between 1954 and 1968 saw the two nations go through a period of hostility, however found peace and therefore retreated. 1969 to 1979 was the fourth period, and improving relationships, also known as the détente, was seen between the two nations. The fifth period between 1979 and 1985 marks the beginning of the Second Cold War as relations declined due to the development in developing countries and of nuclear weapons. However, a stalemate is reached. The sixth and final phase from 1985 to 1991 marks the end of the Cold War and the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Expansionism and containment had major implications on the relationship between the Soviet Union and the United States. In order to further spread communism and to have a buffer zone so that the Soviet Union could not get invaded due to the expansion over the Eastern Europe, the rapid expansion of the Soviet Union and its communist states induced fear into the United States, and tensions grew as the expansion continued. This caused major conflict between the two nations due to differing ideological values that they possessed. The idea of capitalism was seen as something that does not last and a threat to the working class, and therefore capitalist nations should be seen as potential enemies rather than allies. In response to the rapid expansion by the Soviet Union, the USA introduced the containment policy that prevents its allies from spreading communism. The expansion and containment is an aspect that led to the beginning of the Cold War and strained relations between the Soviet Union and the United States. The nuclear arms race was the fight for weaponry superiority between the United States and the Soviet Union. By 1953, a hydrogen bomb, 2,500 times stronger than the Hiroshima bomb, was built by each nation. Each country felt extremely threatened by each other, and as a result, more weaponry was built. By the 1960s, the USA had 8,000 ballistic missiles and the Soviet Union had 7,000. By the 1970s, both countries identified that if they were to attack the other country, they would be attacked themselves, and the cost of weaponry had greatly affected common people living standards. Chris Truman stated that the high cost of building and maintaining armed forces was one aspect that led to the détente. The nuclear arms race strained relations between the Soviet Union and the United States, however, was one of the factors that led to the détente, and as seen in Figure 1.2, a dramatic drop in warheads produced was seen in the final stages of the Cold War. In 1961, the Berlin Wall was built to further prevent the escape of East Germans to the fascist state of West Germany, and to prevent West Germans to enter and undermine the communist state. The wall stood until 1989, when the East German Communist Party announced that the East Germans could cross the border without any implication or difficulty. The Berlin Wall is a powerful symbol of the Cold War. The wall symbolized the divide between the communist nation and the Western capitalist nations. This divide represents the relationship of the Soviet Union and the United States and the differences they had. When the wall was built, it represents strained relations between two nations, and when the wall was abolished, it shows how the relationship had vastly improved and indicated that the end of the Cold War was imminent. There are many aspects that shaped and symbolized the evolving nature of the Cold War. The Berlin Wall is the epitome of this, when it was built, it represents the divide between nations with different ideologies. When it was taken out, however, it was symbolized unification and peace being found with differing views. The expansionism and containment are aspects that cause show the development of the war, and nuclear arms race outlined that more weaponry can lead to peace between two nations as they identify the ramifications attacking each other could have.